Hello, everybody. I've felt called today to talk about something that maybe some of you out there have experienced, and it's coming up for me with a few of my clients. And I've generally been thinking about it a lot because February and March were actually some major anniversaries for me of, like, I'd say my first major healing crisis or dark night of the soul, my breakdown that became a breakthrough. And I don't want to get into all of that right now, but I will be next week actually doing a podcast about that experience I had at 19 years old. And that would be probably like the biggest example of like a healing crisis in my life that I've had. But I've had minor ones too, and I've had one, pretty recently since changing my diet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. If any of you have ever been smokers, this is a really great example. I was a smoker on and off for, quite some time since I was a teenager. Cigarettes, I really, for a while when I was traveling, I would only do it like in certain countries, right? Like in Israel, like so many people smoke, and there's this whole little ritual with rolling the tobacco, and there was just this, it just felt so culturally appropriate there for me to do that. That for the whole month that I was in Israel, I like went back to smoking and then quit when I left Israel. Well, being an on and off smoker for many years, and ex-smokers out there or anybody who's ever tried to quit before will know this, you're not really coughing too bad when you smoke. But as soon as you stop smoking, like as soon as you stop like taking in the smoke into your lungs on a regular basis, suddenly you start coughing a lot, and you start coughing up like gross phlegm. And that's a perfect example of some way that our body starts removing toxicity when we're no longer taking it in. So once, if you're taking it in on a daily basis, if you're smoking cigarettes, every day or multiple times a day, your body's not really going to be, like, it's going to find ways to detox you, but it's not going to be able to do a real clearing of your lungs and of your throat because you're always putting something in, right? So this is one example of the way that a healing crisis can occur. It's not pleasant to be suddenly coughing up yucky phlegm, but it's what your body does when you stop smoking. And with, anybody who's quit sugar or quit certain kinds of substances, like coffee is a good example, or, serious examples would be like somebody who drinks every day and then stops drinking. Your body goes through withdrawal as you adjust to a new version of health that's possible for your body, right? And it's not pleasant sometimes. So one of the ways this shows up sometimes in my somatic practice is that we spend an hour or 90 minutes working to release tight, tense muscles that are accumulated tension that maybe somebody's been carrying for like 30 years or 40 years or their entire life. Their muscles in their body have been tight and like holding on for dear life, okay? And it's maybe these muscles are contracted because of specific traumas that happened. Maybe it was a physical trauma like a car accident, or maybe it was some kind of emotional trauma, or maybe it was a combination of the two. And so we're releasing this muscular pattern together, through this movement practice that I teach. And they will feel some sense of relief. Sometimes maybe they might feel also an emotional discharge during the session. But sometimes it doesn't really happen during the session. It happens the next day. So I often like to warn my clients that even though it feels like we didn't do a whole lot, they might be sore the next day. They might be really sore, like they did a full body workout, even though they were just lying on the floor doing these micro movements, and they got super relaxed during the session. The next day, it's like their body's ready to take out the trash because they've interrupted the process that they've been in their whole lives of tightening up and contracting their muscles. We've, even for just an hour and a half, changed that. And what happens is actually a flushing of their muscular system and their lymphatic system. Because if you can think about, like, if my muscle in my neck is like tight and hard, right, and it's being maintained in contraction all the time, and I have a stiff neck all the time, this muscle's not getting very good blood flow. It's like all the muscle fibers are wound up tight. The fascia is nice and hard and tight, right? That's why people love to go get a massage, because it brings back some of that blood flow. Well, in this movement practice, when we release that muscle, when we release this muscle back to its original length, and we soften the fibers of the muscle, it also softens everything else too, like the connective tissue gets, the fascia gets softer. And now all of a sudden there's flow. There's energetic flow, and there's blood flow, and there's fluids that are moving through this muscle that were not before. And this muscle, obviously, if it's been really tight and in contraction, has been producing muscle waste. It's been producing muscle waste through its contraction. And now the blood flow is moving that old muscle waste out. So I always tell my clients they got to drink lots of water. They might be sore the next day. And they might feel like, like some people feel, like I said, an emotional discharge during the session. They might feel some of that the next day too. They might realize that they've been pushing themselves really, really hard for a long time. They've been pushing through the pain and through the discomfort in their body, and they haven't been resting. And so the next day they could be really tired. They could be tired for like several days, because their body's actually given an opportunity now to flush out the muscle waste, to flush out, all kinds of stuff that's been lingering, maybe even energetic and emotional things that have been stuck in different parts of their body. So, the way this shows up at a session is maybe like I said, person has an emotional release, or they start feeling tingly. They start feeling tingly all over as these fluids start to move through their body, and the energy starts to flow through their body again. And then the way it can show up the next day or days after is soreness and a little bit of darkness. And it's a challenging thing, because if you've ever quit smoking, like I mentioned before, it's a good thing to quit smoking. Like, your lungs will start a healing process. Like, your body will start taking out all of the chemicals that were in the cigarettes. And maybe there's been a psychological thing that, like, when we're smoking, like, we kind of know it's bad for us, but we're doing it. And we know it's bad for us. I had a cousin, and when we were teenagers, like, she used to say, smoking is like cutting on the inside. And if you think about it, it like really is, because it's actually damaging our bodies to do it, right? And most of us know that, but we keep doing it, for whatever reason. There are these self-destructive things that human beings keep doing, even though they know they're not good for us, until we don't, until something changes in us and we don't do that anymore. So yeah, it's pretty intense to go through any kind of healing crisis, even minor ones. Another example I'll give is, like, I went through changing my diet last year, and I went through from, a fair amount of like animal product in my diet, and a fair amount of, beers on a weekly basis, to none of that, and really eating only foods that were gonna like help my body heal. And the result was that I felt amazing for like 2 weeks. Like, I felt like on top of the world. Like, my eyesight got better, because now I was actually getting like flooded with nutrition that helped my eyes. Like, colors were brighter. Like, it was really magnificent for 2 weeks. And then I had a healing crisis. I had a healing crisis for 2 days that I felt terrible, and I couldn't sleep, and I was shaking. I actually was having like the shakes, like someone who's withdrawing from things. And based on previous experiences I had, I knew that I was going through like a detox. I could feel it. I could taste it in my mouth. And I did everything to just take care of myself. I took a lot of hot baths. I, cleared my schedule so I could just take care of my body. And there's a term for this. I can't remember it right now, like the Herxmeyer thing. It's a healing crisis that our bodies go through when we start to detox, right? So this was the most recent one I had, but I had experience with it. Like, I'd had these kind of experiences before when I'd done cleanses or other kinds of detoxification processes. So I was prepared. But I'm reminded sometimes that some of my clients or people out there in the world have never maybe done that, or they may have never experienced it on a big level, and it can be scary. Which is one of the reasons that I mean, for me, I'm not really into like hardcore cleanses anymore or things that are going to cause me to detox really fast, because I just know how much it can interrupt life to do something extreme. And so, generally try to do things that are gentle and kind of help you detox slowly, so that you don't have like a major kind of healing crisis. So yeah, there's amazing thing on the other side of the healing crisis, like after that 2-day period where I basically felt like horrible. It was like I came back from feeling horrible and I felt really good and I felt like balanced and I felt clear. And I knew that, okay, I felt like hell for 2 days, but whatever I was clearing from my body, maybe it's like feeling like hell for 2 days is better than having, cancer in 10 years and going through chemo for who knows how long. Like, I was clearing something. I was clearing something from my body, and it needed to be cleared, and I needed to be feeling sick in order for that clearing to happen. So yeah, it's a fine line. Like, only the individual who's in the middle of it can really know, like, whether it's too much and they need to get help, or whether they're, able to make it through that experience of a detox. Obviously, like, you're detoxing, or maybe you have COVID, or maybe there's something else, you can't always know. So it's definitely like a delicate issue, but in my experience, coming through the other side of it is so valuable. Because of course, what do you want to do when, you quit smoking and you're jonesing for a cigarette and you're coughing up garbage and you can just make all of this misery end by going and getting a pack of cigarettes? Or when I have a really bad coffee detox. So when I quit coffee, it's like, oh God, like I just want a cup of coffee so bad. And I'll know this headache will go away if I just drink a cup of coffee, right? But I know that's the opposite direction from where I've decided to move. That's not where I'm really headed. So trying to keep that in perspective is so important. Releasing your tight muscles is just it changes how you age. It changes how you move. It changes your ability to handle stress. It protects you from being injured, to not have super tight muscles in your body all the time. So it's really worth it in the long run to deal with some soreness, to deal with some of the emotional stuff that comes up when you release your tight muscles. And that's what I always hold for my clients when they're struggling, is that there's something on the other side of this that really is, it's what's on the other side of the dark night of the soul. What's on the other side is transformation. What's on the other side is awakening. What's on the other side is a new paradigm and a new frequency that can no longer continue to hold the old frequency, like the things and the ways that you lived before and the things that you did. It's going to be different in this new frequency. It's going to be different in this new paradigm, and all those other things are going to need to gently or not so gently fall away. So it's a really beautiful process, and I'd love to hear from you guys. If you've ever had a healing crisis or a detox and you want to share something about it, that would be awesome, because I love hearing people's stories about what they went through, what they overcame. And yeah, you'll be hearing more about my first major healing crisis next week on this podcast. So you can look for that. It's definitely a pretty wild story. So looking forward to sharing it with you guys. And yeah, getting real. All right. Bye.